What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the Giants finally have a quarterback on their roster not named Tommy DeVito. It's Jameis Winston. Man, we've been talking about Jameis Winston for a long time, Alex. Like, way before the offseason even came close to beginning, we were talking about why Winston would make a lot of sense for this team as a bridge quarterback option. So the Giants go ahead and sign him to a 2-year, $8 million deal, $4 million per season, but there's incentives that could take the contract worth up to $16 million per season. And there's a lot of ways that you can interpret this. Is this a starting bridge quarterback contract? Is this a backup quarterback contract? And that's kind of where this is going to lead into maybe a little bit of a debate between Alex and I, because I think we see this differently. But Jameis Winston at the baseline, I'm happy to have him. I think he's a great locker room presence. I think he's a good player in the right situation. Yes, he's erratic. Yes, he throws a lot of interceptions, but he's really fun to watch, and he pushes the ball downfield, and playmakers will get maximized. When Jameis Winston was a starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans got peppered. Expect Malik Nabers to get peppered this season, and that's what I'm looking forward to, because if Malik Nabers is playing well and getting the ball a ton, like we saw against the Indianapolis Colts, we will win some of these meaningless games. So Jameis Winston could lead us to some W's, eat some W's as well, since that's what he's known for being, the W eater, so iconic. But yeah, I think that he's going to feed the ball to Malik Nabers, and the Giants offense now is going to be a lot better than it was last year at least, but we'll see what other moves they potentially make at quarterback as well. But Alex, how are you feeling today, my friend, and what are your thoughts on the Jameis Winston signing?
Feeling good, and yeah, this one came out of nowhere. We were waiting for Rodgers, waiting for Russ, and Winston was kind of the third option that we thought the Giants would pivot to. I think that, just based on what we saw happen yesterday, the Giants watched Aaron Rodgers go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, had like a 6-hour meeting, met all the coaches, hung out, got to know them, heard their plans, and then 2 hours later signed Jameis Winston. So I'm like, that to me tells me that Joe Schoen probably called up Rodgers' agent and was like, hey, what's going on, buddy? He didn't want to come here for a second visit. What's going on? And they're probably like, well, he had a really good meeting. Chances are he's going to end up with the Steelers if the Vikings don't pop up and offer him a deal out of the blue. So to me, I think Shane got the news that Rodgers was likely going to be off the board, and barring an unforeseen event, and he pivoted to a guy in Jameis Winston. Look, Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, they both achieve kind of the same results. You're not making the playoffs, but you're going to get some production from them. And really the whole idea was there were going to be a bridge. I think Russell Wilson's a better quarterback than Jameis Winston, don't get me wrong.
He just went to the playoffs, though, so.
Right. But again, the Steelers are a much better run team than us. So there's a lot of other context that goes into that. Yeah. And just coaching wise, really, just head and shoulders better, aside from Arthur Smith being an absolute bum, but that's another story. I think, Mike Tomlin just knows that winning pedigree. The Giants don't know that winning pedigree right now, but I do think Jameis Winston gives you, like you said, a good word, erratic. He is going to be insane one day. I watched him against the Denver Broncos throw for 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, and had 3 interceptions in that same game. You know what I mean? It's that's the Jameis Winston experience, though. It's going to be fun. That's one thing for sure. You're going to be really pissed off one moment, and the next moment he's going to march down the field 75 yards in 2 plays. And you're going to be like, what the hell just happened? He's not afraid to throw outside the numbers. He's not afraid to throw over the middle. This guy, he's a fearless quarterback, which is why he's probably not getting paid starter money. But I guess my perspective, and something that Anthony and I kind of want to go back and forth on here, and get your takes as well in the YouTube comment section, because I think this is an interesting discussion. What does this mean for the Giants now? In my opinion, I think Rodgers is gone. I think he always was gone. The idea that he was going to go to the Giants, it was unlikely to begin with. I think it's the Steelers, or it was probably he was going to retire. And if not the Minnesota Vikings. The Giants were always not very high on his list after the initial wave of his meetings. So the last option really there is Russell Wilson. And like you said, Russell Wilson's had his issues in the locker room in the past. And, they're both of those guys, aging veterans. Russ has fallen off a bit, but he still obviously has a great deep ball. He can manage an offense. He has a little bit of mobility. A little bit older, obviously. Jameis is only 31 and Russ is 36. So, different kind of stages in their careers. But I will say probably a lot more expensive. And I want to talk about that financial kind of situation too, because now the Giants have depending on what they do here, they could have a lot more money to spend on another player. So I wonder where they would allocate that money. And obviously you're thinking maybe another quarterback. I don't think it's going to be Rodgers. So in this instance, it's really just Russell Wilson that they could sign. That would be an actual upgrade. That's kind of how I see right now. But With Jameis Winston, he gets a 2-year, $8 million deal, $4 million per season, with $16 million in possible incentives. I love the 2-year contract. It's a super, super friendly contract for the Giants, and it ensures that they have a good veteran, stable backup for 2 seasons. Now, Russell Wilson for 1 season, and then Jameis for 2 seasons. Like, I don't know exactly what that gets you or where that gets you, but I guess just a better room in general. Or the alternative is, and what I think is likely going to happen, is the Giants signed Jameis Winston to be a bridge, to be an erratic, volatile bridge that's going to be really fun to watch in the beginning of the year because that's kind of their best option at this point, one of their better options. And then they're going to try to draft a quarterback, whether it be Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders. Everybody and their moms thinks that the Giants are drafting Shadur Sanders. I think that that smoke might be coming to fruition right now. They could make a blockbuster deal to go up to 1. Who knows? There's still time. It's unlikely, but we don't know. I think that this move was intended to say, Jameis, like, we're going to give you because like, why add the incentives if he was just getting paid backup money? I'm not so sure. If you had no other suitors on the market, they probably didn't even have to give him incentives if that was the case. This is probably a situation where, in my opinion, I believe they told Jameis, our intent is to draft a quarterback this year. And they probably said that to Rodgers. They probably said that to Russ. And both those guys may have been like, okay, well, that means they're not going to reinforce this team around me. They're going to try to draft my replacement. And Jameis was probably like, yeah, I'm fine with that. I know where I am in my career. If I play more, I'll get more in incentive money. And then they'll draft a quarterback. And then I will be that mentor. And I'll still be getting paid a nice chunk of change. And if that quarterback needs more time, I'll play more and make more money. That's kind of where my perspective is at. But I know you have a differing opinion here. And you think that the Giants could still go out and get that veteran to pair with Jameis.
Yeah, you asked where else that money could go, and I think it's to another quarterback. Listen, Jameis Winston just signed a contract worth $4 million per season. That's less than the Giants signed Drew Lock for last year. That's less than they were paying Tyrod Taylor in average annual salary. This is not a starting bridge quarterback contract. This is a backup quarterback contract. This doesn't tell me that the Giants feel so confident that they're going to be drafting someone at number 3 and making Jameis their bridge. No, this tells me that the Giants aren't confident that one of those quarterbacks is going to fall into their lap at number 3. If you've seen the way the Cleveland Browns have been moving, they seem like a team that's intent on drafting a quarterback at number 2. And we all feel as though Tennessee at number 1 is going to go with Cam Ward. So if the top 2 quarterbacks are off the board at 1 and 2, were the Giants going to roll into the season with Tommy DeVito and just Jameis Winston? No, they would need another quarterback, a legitimate starter, and then maybe you take a Jackson Dart in the 2nd or 3rd round, or whoever in those middle rounds. But this is more of a protection against the possibility that the Giants might not be able to draft a quarterback at number 3, in my opinion, because now they have a backup quarterback who could be a backup, yes, for a rookie, or a backup for a veteran in Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston hasn't been a starter in how long? Like 4 years? He has been a backup every single year. He is signing backup contracts. I don't think he's stepping in here expecting to be that starting bridge that necessarily a lot of fans and yourself are expecting, Alex. And I'll actually throw this out there. There was a report that Aaron Rodgers might wait until after the NFL draft to decide which team he's going to play for, right? So if you're following that line of thinking, if Rodgers is waiting until after the draft, Jameis signing now gives them a backup if Rodgers does sign here after the draft, or it gives them protection so that they can use him as a bridge in the draft if they do land one. But Rodgers is going to wait and see. If the quarterbacks go 1-2 right off the board to Tennessee and Cleveland, and the Giants don't get a quarterback, Rodgers might want to sign here if that happens. However, if they do draft Shador at 3, he won't want to come here. So I think this could just be Jameis Winston signing in order to be a backup or bridge, but we'll find out later because we don't know which quarterback is going to fall into our lap if either one does at number 3 overall. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that the Giants are picking 3rd and not 1st. Them drafting a quarterback in the 1st round is no guarantee unless they make a massive reach on a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe at 3. They have to hope that one of those 2 guys falls into their lap. And Cleveland does feel like a team intent on drafting a quarterback. I'll say this, though, about the Jameis thing to move off of like the ramifications of Jameis Winston and what that means for drafting a quarterback. I just think this is one of the best contracts in the sport because I think that Jameis Winston is a very good backup quarterback. And for $4 million per season, when you put that into perspective and compare that to the fact that the Giants paid $5 million on a backup deal last year for Drew Lock, $4 million per year for Jameis is a hell of a deal. You all know me. I'm very critical of Joe Shane. I'm not his biggest fan. I'm going to give him praise on this one and give him a lot of due credit because this is a really good deal. 2 years, $4 million per season, can go up to $8 million per season. But I will say this about the 2 years, Alex. That to me, again, makes me feel as though this is a signing of a backup quarterback for a veteran. Because why else would it be 2 years? I think if it's a bridge quarterbacks are usually on 1-year contracts. They're here and then they're done. Unless, I guess, if you want Jameis to be the backup to Shador for 2 years, if that's kind of the line of thinking that you had, I'm not entirely sure. But this, to me, does feel like a backup quarterback contract where a veteran's going to come in and play in front of Jameis.
Yeah, I mean, so how I would perceive it is this, and labeling it a backup contract kind of flows right into where I'm going with it, is that the Giants aren't going to tell Russ, hey, like, we may draft a quarterback and replace you at the end of the season or next year. Like, we're not going to we can't give you a 2-year deal because we want to draft a quarterback and then we're going to end up replacing you. So probably 1-year deal only makes sense, but he probably wants to maybe settle down for a couple seasons. I think Rodgers, we'll see what kind of deal he ends up signing. The Steelers obviously leading the pack in that race right now, but when it comes to Winston, he knows where he's at. Like, he is a backup, and he's getting paid backup money, but if he needs to start, he can step in and do it and be volatile. Like, one day he'll be amazing, and the next week he'll be nothing. That's kind of the Jameis Winston experience. But you sign up for that because, I mean, let's look at last year, the draft class, and the teams that did take quarterbacks. The Bears, the Patriots, and obviously the Commanders. Their backup quarterbacks made very, very minimal money. Like, it would be really interesting to me if the Giants went and signed Jameis Winston, sign Russell Wilson, and then drafted a quarterback. That would be a very unique way of going about it, a very unusual way of going about addressing that position. So the 3 quarterbacks in that room, one of them who's taking reps with the third-string offense, doesn't make much sense to me right off the bat,
Well, Atlanta Falcons, right? They signed Kirk Cousins to that big contract last offseason. They still added a backup, and then in the draft, they shocked everybody and took Michael Penix Jr. anyway. So
who was their backup again behind Kirk?
Well, they had Desmond Ridder still on the roster. Or did they trade him?
They traded him.
But they signed the backup behind Kirk. It wasn't just Kirk Cousins on the roster. I don't remember who the backup was, but I know they signed the backup, signed Kirk, and still drafted a quarterback. So there is precedence for this, and the Giants could theoretically sign Jameis, sign Rodgers, not tell Rodgers that they're going to draft a quarterback, and then just go ahead and draft one. But that's why I think Rodgers might wait until after the draft.
Talk about locker room problems. That's how you get locker room
That's
problems.
why I think Rodgers is going to wait until after the draft, because he's going to want to do what Kirk Cousins didn't do. Kirk Cousins got burned by that decision to sign on the first day of free agency. This is why Aaron Rodgers is taking his time. Like, yes, we're frustrated by him taking his time, and it's annoying because we feel like he's making it all about himself. But he's not. Like, he's trying to protect his future and his job security. And yeah, that is technically making it about himself, but that's okay. He's trying to protect his job security. So if he waits until after the NFL draft, he eliminates the possibility of a team pulling a Michael Penix Jr. situation on him and pulling the rug out from underneath him.
Yeah, to me, it tells me one thing, that the Giants, every quarterback they've met with so far they've told them, we might draft a quarterback this year. Like, because they can't not tell them that, right? They can't tell, we're going to go BPA, we're going to take a player that's going to support you. They're definitely telling them we're going to possibly take a quarterback. And that's probably why Rodgers was like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about sticking around for that situation. I want to win. Like, he's 41 years old. He's got no more time to waste, so I don't think he wants to be a bridge. He wants to win now. And I think Russell Wilson, probably the same. He wants to win. Like, he doesn't want to go and be a bridge somewhere. Jameis Winston, he's like, yeah, this is what I do. I'm a bridge. Like, he's like, this is what I do. I get paid to be a backup, to be a bridge, and step in and start if need be. So, like, that's kind of where I'm like, I think that they told Winston that, and he was open to it. And I don't think Russ and Rodgers were totally on board with that idea. And I think it probably gave them more of an inclination to say, we can sign this guy to next to nothing and have extra money to say, if we draft a quarterback, now we can spend more to reinforce that guy. And maybe it's only, that Jameis Winston on 2 years is probably cheaper than Rodgers and Russ on 1 year alone. So, it's definitely gives them a little bit more financial flexibility to address other positions, maybe even upgrade at right guard. I know the options aren't great, Will Hernandez and Shaq Mason being the best, but I still would do it. I still would grab one of those guys now if they don't sign another guy.
Yeah, they got to get a veteran right guard, but this Russell Wilson, situation, the reporting is that he views the Giants as the most viable option. That's what he told Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. That's where he wants to go. So I don't necessarily agree that the Giants told him we might draft a quarterback and he decided, oh, I don't want to play for you guys. Because the reporting is that he has decided he does want to play for the New York Giants. So
yeah, The question is, does he want to play for the Giants or does he just want to be in New York? Because I know he has a home here and his wife's, wants to be here. Like, is it?
I don't think he wants to be in Cleveland.
Well, yeah, that's fair. I don't think anyone, nobody wants to be in Cleveland. I'm actually curious to see what the Browns do now because they're running out of options. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they.
The Browns haven't signed anybody. The Browns are drafting Shador is probably what the Giants are thinking. That's why they're signing Jameis and probably still adding another veteran quarterback. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's possible, but at this point, I would not rule out the idea that the Giants are going to make some sort of trade up. Like, they're going to sell the farm to move up and get the guy that they really want. I don't know who that's going to be, though. Like, it could be Cam, it could be Sanders, but a move like this, to me, it's a small move, but the incentives, if it was just a 2-year, $8 million deal, I'd be like, yeah, like, you're 100% right. This doesn't impact anything. But the incentives throw me off because, like, he will not play. If you sign Jameis Winston and then you go and sign Rodgers or Russ, he will not play.
Backup quarterback contracts usually have incentives, not because they're expected to play, but because they're not expected to play. And if they do, they deserve to get paid more because.
But why add the incentive? Like last year, did he have incentives on his deal for the Browns? It was a 1-year, $5 million deal, I believe. That was it. By the way, you're 100% right on that. I cannot believe we donated to the Drew Lock Fund $5 million. Unbelievable amount of money to give to a player who literally was incompetent when he was on the field.
Donated to the Drew Lock Fund is an incredible way to put that. But yeah, I mean, Drew Lock was $5 million, and now we're signing Jameis for $4 million, and that's even crazier because you're right. Jameis signed for 1 year, $5 million last year. So
it's interesting. It's interesting because like like, why do you need to add the incentives though?
Well,
if nobody wanted him and he signed a 1-year, $5 million deal without any incentives last year, why add the incentives?
Well, Darius Slayton had incentives on his deal last year, and the Giants didn't put him on the field enough for him to reach those incentives.
But the incentives
so what makes you think that they're going to let Jameis?
It was $100K.
Okay, no, I understand, but still, just because he has incentives on his contract doesn't mean he's going to have the opportunity to reach those incentives.
But like, why commit to incentives if you don't need to in signing that player? You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? 16 mil is a lot. That's a lot of money. That could compromise their ability to sign somebody.
It's $16 million over 2 years. It's
right.
It's a maximum of 8 per season. That
would take the contract up. If he plays though, if it's $8 million per season on top of the 4, that still brings him up to 1 year, $12 million.
No. It's $8 million for 1 year. It's $4 million of incentives for each season.
Oh, is it $4 million of incentives? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, it brings up the total value to 16. You're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, so it's still it's less than I thought. It's less than I thought. I thought it was with $16 million of incentives if he reaches.
Because what I'm saying is $8 million is still backup quarterback money. Daniel Jones just signed 1 year, $14 million.
Yeah, $8 million is still
Sam
backup.
Darnold last year signed. Yes, he became the starter, but signed to be the backup for $10 million. So $8 million per season is still backup quarterback money. I don't think that anything has changed here for the Giants. I still think they're pursuing Aaron Rodgers.
It would be interesting to see if they would do. I mean, I don't think they're going to get Rodgers, but it's hard because you're going to draft or you're going to sign Russ. Let's say in this instance, because I don't think Rodgers is coming here. You're going to sign Winston, and then you're going to draft Sanders. Like, Sanders will never see the field as a rookie. Like, and then Joe Shane, by the way, if they don't play well, is going to get fired, and his rookie quarterback will have never played. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point?
Or they sign Jameis, they sign Rodgers, and they draft Travis Hunter, and Travis Hunter and Aaron Rodgers form a connection, and the Giants try to win games this year because that's what John Mara required. They have to win games this year to keep their jobs. He doesn't care about if they draft a quarterback or not. He only cares if they're competitive or playing competitive football in the month of December.
Right. So, I mean, let's say I think the odds of us getting Rodgers is very low, to be clear. But Russ is more of a possibility. But how many more wins does Russ give you than Jameis Winston is the question.
I think quite a few more.
You think
significantly more? Yeah, but I'll say this, just on the Aaron Rodgers thing. I think you and a lot of fans are taking away the meeting that Rodgers had yesterday indicates he's probably signing with the Steelers. To me, the fact that he had a 6-hour meeting with them, walked out of there, and didn't sign the papers probably tells me he's still very much open to going to the New York Giants. I see it differently. So, and I think that, he had this meeting with the Steelers. What's to stop him from having a meeting with the Giants as well in the coming days or weeks? He could
could
have a meeting. It's Pittsburgh to New Jersey ain't that far. He could totally drive right up the turnpike, and boom, now he's having a meeting with the Giants today. Maybe we'll find out about it in 5 hours.
Inconspicuous. Like 2 hours after Rodgers goes to visit with the Steelers, the Giants sign Jameis Winston.
Giants could just be trying to press Rodgers' hand, right?
But like at that point, I guess the question is, I mean, I guess if you're Rodgers, like you don't really care who's your backup is because you don't intend to get hurt, right? But why does that put pressure on Rodgers to signing Jameis Winston?
Because it might make him feel like they're moving on, and he's going to lose an opportunity to sign with the Giants. If they sign their quarterback,
but if all the reports now are saying it doesn't impact their chase, then why would he feel that way?
Well, why do you feel that way?
Because I think the Giants signed Jameis Winston to be a bridge for a.
So what if he feels that way too? So if he feels that way too, then he might feel like that opportunity closed.
Well, right, I mean, yeah, but if Joe Schoen has direct like contact with his agent, it's like, yeah, like it's not going to impact our desire to sign Rodgers, so he wouldn't feel that way. I mean, we don't know what he said behind the scenes, but he has direct connection there. He's direct communication with Joe Schoen, so like I feel like that could be easily cleared up. But I don't know, like at this point in time, I don't think Russ. I don't even think Rodgers, and I don't think Jameis Winston are making the Giants a playoff team. I think, yeah, maybe we'll win more games, but we still won't make the playoffs, and I still think the result is similar. I think it's in Joe Schoen's best interest of self-preservation. A lot of his moves so far have indicated self-preservation to me. It is in his best interest to draft a quarterback this year. It is in his best interest to attach himself to a young quarterback because no new regime wants to inherit a young quarterback. They want to draft their own. You know what I mean? I think it's in his best interest to go get a quarterback, and that's why I think that this is a move that aligns with that strategy. I think signing Rodgers, Winston, and drafting quarterback is a bit overkill and kind of a misappropriation of assets and resources, to be honest. That's how I feel.
If they sign Rodgers, they're not going to draft a quarterback, is how I feel.
Right, but I think it's in Joe Schoen's best interest to draft a quarterback. Because it would be year 7 straight of not drafting a quarterback, which is insane. Like obviously you've said that in the past too. So
they got to draft one at some point. They can draft one in the middle rounds, sure.
What's the point?
But if they sign Rodgers, I think that they're going to draft. Well, what's the point of drafting a quarterback in the middle rounds? Don't get me started because that could be a firestorm. I could go on a rant for that one. Don't get me started on that one. What's the point of drafting a quarterback in the middle rounds? How about the fact that Joe Milton is now worth a 3rd-round pick and the Patriots spent a 6th on him? That's why you draft a quarterback in the middle rounds. They appreciate and value more than any other position in the sport.
Not to start, not to be the franchise. But to maybe leverage in a trade in the future.
Brock Purdy was supposed to be a backup, and then he started, and he is the franchise, and he might get the highest paid contract of any quarterback in the NFL history. So
I don't trust the Giants to do anything of that sort. But
that's not the point. The point is you've got to throw darts at the board, and you have to take quarterbacks in the late rounds because they do appreciate and value, as I was saying, and because you never know when you strike gold. So yeah, the Giants need to draft a quarterback at some point in this draft, regardless of who they sign. But if they sign Aaron Rodgers, because they have Jameis Winston, if they sign Aaron Rodgers, I can't imagine they're going to take a quarterback at number 3. That's going to be a move to get the best player available.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If they do sign Rodgers or Russ, they will absolutely go BPA.
And I want to say this because we've discussed this before. What if the Giants don't like these quarterbacks? What if they're not sold on these quarterbacks? Possible. This, again, is a move to sign Jameis. Kind of makes me feel like maybe they're not sold on these quarterbacks because this is a backup quarterback signing, and all of the reporting indicates that the Giants are still maintaining their interest in both Russ and Rodgers. So maybe the Giants really don't like Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. That's totally possible. And hey, they were obsessed with trading for Matthew Stafford. They've been trying to sign Rodgers. All of their moves realistically have indicated that they don't want to draft a quarterback. So I know you're saying you think it's in Joe Schoen's best interest. And yes, in many ways, it looks like they do want to draft a quarterback, depending on which perspective you take. But you could also read and interpret all of this as they really don't like these quarterbacks, and they want to add quarterback talent through the veteran free agency market to avoid drafting one at number 3.
I'll tell you what, Winston's signing is a great natural smokescreen for them because they're trying to cover their tracks after basically telling the whole league what they wanted to do this free agency. Trying to get Stafford, trying to get Rodgers, like we all know. And now I think the Winston signing kind of covers up their tracks a little bit because now it's like, and all the reports saying, oh, like, yeah, this is all this, that. But even Jordan of ESPN said this morning, like, it's all window dressing. Like, they want to draft a quarterback, right? So, like, the reports suggest that, yeah, like, they're curious, but they want to draft a quarterback. The question is, I mean, I guess, is there gonna be one there at 3?
I don't buy it. I don't think this is window dressing. I don't think. Listen, I've got a lot of respect for Jordan Rannon, but I don't think he's right on that one. And this is why I'll try and explain it. Have the Tennessee Titans done anything in this veteran free agency market? No, because they're drafting a quarterback. Have the Cleveland Browns done anything in this veteran free agency market? No, because they're going to draft a quarterback. All the New York Giants have tried to do is bring in veteran quarterbacks all offseason. They were desperate to trade for Matthew Stafford. They're reportedly desperate and begging to sign Aaron Rodgers. This is a team, to me, that does not want to draft a quarterback. I get it, why this might look like window dressing and why Rannon is making that point in his reporting, but all the other teams around the league who are planning on drafting quarterbacks are not behaving the way that the New York Giants are. They're not going out there and trying to sign the top of the market quarterbacks and win immediately. Why would they do that if they're just going to draft a quarterback anyway? The Giants might not want to draft a quarterback, and that's probably why they're so interested in all of these top of the market veterans, in my opinion. So I think Jameis is a backup, and I think he's going to be a backup either for Shador or Rodgers/Wilson. I don't think that's going to change, but this does not, in my opinion, prevent them from making that next move and bringing in another veteran quarterback. But if they do bring in that veteran quarterback, Alex, it will indicate to me that they do not have any interest in drafting a quarterback at number 3 overall. So, but I'll say, again, the Browns, no quarterback moves this offseason. The Titans, no quarterback moves this offseason. The Giants, all they've tried to do is bring in a quarterback. So I think that there is an indication here that maybe either A, the Giants feel like they're not going to be able to draft a quarterback at 3, or B, they really don't want to draft a quarterback at 3.
It's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, because winning that game against Indianapolis, like, actually put us in hell. Because, like, it's like now you can't get to 1. You don't have the first overall pick, so you can't take the quarterback you want. Because if we lost that game, it's Cam Ward. Like, we're drafting Cam Ward, and we would know already. And now you have to mortgage your whole future to get there. And now the Browns, who haven't signed a quarterback and don't have a quarterback right now, aside from like Dorian Thompson, whatever, like they are in a bad spot because they could end up with Russ, right? It's possible. Or they end up taking Shedeur Sanders, and the Giants once again 1-2 off the board, and they don't have a quarterback, and they gotta do some crazy stuff, probably go BPA at 3, they're Hunter or Carter, and then trade back up into the first round to get Dart. That's what seems to be their best option at this point in time. So if that was to unfold, if that scenario was to unfold, it's a crazy situation where I do think, like, at the moment, the Giants are trying to navigate some situations where there's a lot of moving pieces here. And depending on what the Browns do, everything could get completely messed up.
Yeah, well, that scenario that you just laid out is exactly why the New York Giants, I know that in that scenario you laid out, you had Russell Wilson on the Browns, but that's why the Giants, I think, aren't going to let Russell Wilson go to the Browns. That's why they're going to sign him or Rodgers, because they don't want a situation where, hey, the Browns, they sign the quarterback in free agency, but then they draft one anyways. They don't want that to happen. They don't want to lose the opportunity of drafting that quarterback at 3 or having the quarterbacks go off the board and they're unprepared. So this to me is just step 1 in preparation for potentially not drafting a quarterback. Jameis Winston as a solid backup or starter if he needs to be, and that's what the incentives are there for. Maybe these incentives, Alex, they view this as, if we do draft a quarterback, you probably play with these incentives. If we don't, you probably don't get these incentives. I'm not sold, man. I just don't think this is a bridge deal. And I still think that Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers is going to wind up a New York Giant. That's how I personally feel about it.
It's totally possible. I think this is the makings of what a bridge looks like. But I think if it was a new regime, Anthony, and they signed Winston, I think we'd both be like, yeah, there's probably a chance that they draft a quarterback. But because it's Joe Shane, it's hard to say, because like you said, they have to win games. So it's like now you have to think about them, self-preservation. What does that look like? I think drafting a quarterback probably is in their best interest, not in the Giants' best interest, depending on how you evaluate these guys. But it's going to be like interesting to see how they mesh, saving themselves while also positioning this team for long-term success. However, and something that you said many times, Anthony, which I agree with, keep taking shots at the board. Like, I'm fine going quarterback at 3 if it means that they're not going to overcommit. I think I have PTSD from Daniel Jones because we overcommitted to him for so long. Even when we knew he was not going to be good, I think that the Giants, need to, have a little bit of self-preservation as an organization and say to themselves, if we draft a quarterback and it's not looking like it's working out for 2 or 3 years, move the hell on, right? Like, just be proactive. So that's kind of where I lean right now, is like, I think they're going to take a quarterback if they can, but I do get why they're positioning themselves to have the best case scenario, or at least just an insurance policy so they can survive if a quarterback isn't there. But again, if they lose out on Sanders and Ward, who knows? Like you said, they could take a shot in the second round on somebody else, like a Dart, or in the mid rounds. Who knows? But I don't think they'll see them as a franchise quarterback, just someone that they can at least have some potential in and just see what happens. Obviously it depends how they grade these guys, but now all the doors are open. I'm very curious to see what they do, but I do think this Jameis Winston signing does lead them to drafting a quarterback.
Yeah. I think that it's one way you can look at it, absolutely, but I'm just going to look at it the other way. I think that this is a backup quarterback contract, and they're going to keep adding talent at the position. They've been intent on signing Rodgers or Wilson or Stafford, whoever it was, name your pick, but I don't know. This to me feels just like a backup quarterback signing, but I do think that Shador is still in play at number 3, but ultimately we'll have to see. And honestly, the more that we talk about this, Alex, the more that I think about it, I could absolutely see both Russ and Rodgers waiting until after the NFL draft to sign. And maybe that's why the Giants are signing Jameis Winston right now, because they know, okay, if we get a quarterback at number 3, we're good. We don't need to sign Russ or Rodgers. However, if we don't get a quarterback at 3, now we need to sign these guys. And then what does that do for Russ and Rodgers? The price has just gone up. Now you're desperate for us. Now you need to sign us because you didn't draft a quarterback. Now you got to pay us more. So potentially, Jameis Winston said, yeah, I'm fine signing now. But Russ and Rodgers are doing these meetings and saying, yeah, I'm interested in you guys, but I'm going to wait until after the NFL draft and see what my market is like then. That could be what this is. So a lot of speculation here. We have a lot more questions than answers after this Jameis Winston signing. However, one thing that we do know, Jameis Winston is going to be on the New York Giants this season, and this is a major upgrade over anything that the New York Giants had last season. So we are happy with this deal, especially considering the terms of the contract. Very good contract. I will give credit to Joe Shane on this one, but alas, we do need to see what other moves he makes at this position and the other positions of need that the New York Giants have. The NFL draft is just about a month and a week away, so really exciting times, and that's why you all should make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below in the comment section, and if you're listening to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.